When you're a hardworking father of four, a call at 2 in the morning is both alarming and exasperating. As the ringing pierced through the stillness of the night and dragged me from the depths of sleep, I felt Lisa, my wife of 18 years, stir beside me. Groggy and disoriented, I instinctively reached for the phone on the nightstand, my heart bracing for the worst. "Hello?" I answered, my voice still thick with sleep. "Is Karen there?" came a brash, young male voice dripping with arrogance. "Who is this?" I asked, irritation creeping into my tone. "Doesn't matter who I am," he shot back. "Just tell me, is she there?" Lisa, now roused by the exchange, sat up and regarded me cautiously. "Joe, who's calling?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "It's some punk looking for Karen," I growled, my frustration mounting. "And if I figure out who he is, he's going to wish he never called." "Oh, tough guy," I heard the smartest say through the receiver. "I'm pretty tough myself. Now wake up Karen and tell her to get the P." I disconnect the cord to the phone. "What are you going to do?" asked Lisa while watching me put my robe on. "I'm going downstairs and disconnect the phones down there as well. I'm sure he'll try calling back. I'll plug them in again tomorrow before I go to work." I was seething and didn't know if I'd be able to go back to sleep. Was the little shit stupid enough to call Karen, my 14-year-old, tomorrow and identify himself as the 2 a.m. caller? I doubted it. No, but if he called back in the wee hours of the morning again, I would be ready for him next time. As I made it up the stairs and back in bed that night, I was completely unaware of how that call would change my life. The next day I took a little longer lunch than usual and drove to a Radio Shack not far from my office. They had a neat little gizmo there that I had to use on another occasion a couple years prior. It was no larger than a pack of cigarettes and extremely easy to use. It consisted of a plastic box with 2 cords. One was a phone jack that plugged into the back of a house phone. The other was a mini jack that plugged into the microphone input of a cassette tape recorder. It also had a female jack where you plugged in the phone cord from the wall socket. It had an on-off switch and was voice activated. When someone started talking on the phone, it would record both sides of the conversation, and once it was connected to one phone, it worked with every phone in the house. When I got home, it took me all of about 2 minutes to hook it up to the phone in my office. If my early morning phone marauder called back, I would have a recording I could play for my daughter and her friends, hoping one of them would be able to identify the voice. That night, over dinner, I was listening to my son talk about his day at school when I got the feeling I was being watched. I glanced up at my wife, who was staring back at me with that look in her eye. I grinned slightly as I tried to concentrate on my son's chatter. But when you've been married as long as we have, you get to know that little look that says, "I want you." Just the anticipation was enough to get me excited. For the next few hours, all I could think of was ravishing my wife's body. Even after 18 years, our sex life never got stale. Later, as it got closer to bedtime, I had to nonchalantly cover my lap when Tessa, my 16-year-old daughter, came up to kiss me goodnight. By the time Lisa and headed for the bedroom, I had just one thing on my mind, and it wasn't some pimply-faced kid with insomnia. Lisa was already under the sheet when I crawled in next to her. She turned on her side and reached around me, rubbing her hand on my stomach for a few seconds, then wasted no time as she moved downward. "What's this, Joe?" she asked while playfully pinching me. "You're insatiable, you know that." "Don't give me that. You've been wanting to get into action all night." "I know those looks," I told her. I wrapped my arm around her and kissed her. Most of the time, I'm the one who takes the more aggressive role with our lovemaking. But tonight it was all her. We just stayed like that, our sweaty bodies pressed together while we tried to slow our breathing to a more normal status. Suddenly, Lisa's eyes opened in shock as we heard Tessa giggling. "You think she heard us?" Lisa whispered. "Either that or she has a boy in her room," I said jokingly. Lisa playfully hit me in the chest with the side of her fist. "Don't even say something like that," she said. "We need to think about soundproofing our bedroom." We cuddled in each other's arms and closed our eyes. The last conscious thought I had was to wonder if our mystery caller would be waking me up later that night. Sure enough, once again, shortly after 2 in the morning, my pigeon called again. Much to the annoyance of my wife, who kept telling me to simply hang up on him. This time I kept him talking, baiting him. I got him to threaten me and make sexually explicit comments about my 14-year-old daughter. This time his butt was mine. Finally, when I felt I had enough of his voice to identify as well as enough to prosecute, I hung up, disconnected the phones again, and returned to a satisfied slumber with a smile on my face. The next morning, when I reconnected the phones before leaving for work, I never thought about disconnecting the recorder. I didn't think about it until later in the day. I knew my kids had used the phone a couple of times that night before my 2 o'clock call, and between my wife and the kids using the phone while I was at work, I would have to search through several calls to find the one I was looking for. Oh well, I thought, it shouldn't take that long to find what I want, and it will be well worth a little extra time, an effort to see the look on that kid's face when I confront him. I got out of the office a few minutes early and must have hit rush hour traffic at just the right time because I was able to breeze right along and was making great time. As I got closer to home, I thought I saw my wife 4 or 5 cars ahead. When I saw her turn into our side street, I knew it was Lisa. She was about a half a block in front of me and turned into our drive just moments before I pulled in behind her. She appeared startled as she looked up and saw me. "Joe, you're early," she said, getting a couple packages from the back seat. "Just by a few minutes," I countered. "Traffic was light." "What did you buy?" "Oh, just a pair of shoes and couple of things," she said. "Here, let me give you a hand," I offered as I started to reach into the back seat for more packages. "Here, you take these," she said, handing me the bundles she had in her arms. "I'll get the rest." For some reason, it almost felt like Lisa was acting a little nervous, like she didn't want me to see something. That wasn't like her. We never kept secrets from each other. I guess that's what caught my attention. It was so out of place it made me wonder what she was hiding. As I took the bag she gave me, I tried to look in the back of her car. I saw Victoria's Secret bag on the seat. Aha, I thought, that's it. She has something special planned. I felt my heart start to pitter-patter. Not one to spoil a surprise, especially when it's for me. I pretended not to see the bag. As we walked up to the house, I noticed she purposely left the package in the car. I helped her upstairs with the bags and laid them on the bed as per Lisa's instructions. "I'll put everything away later," she said. "Right now I have to get dinner started." She gave me a peck on the lips, considering it payment in full for giving her a hand, and headed for the kitchen. I wondered when she planned on sneaking back to the car for the other package, but then thought, oh well, I'll just let her surprise me. Since I had nothing to do until dinner, I decided I'd go to my home office and start going through the tape to find the conversation with Mr. Dead Duck. When I looked, there was quite a bit of tape used up, and I had no way of knowing how many calls had been made before or after my conversation with the pre-dawn predator, nor did I know if there was one long conversation or several short ones, so I just started rewinding. I hit stop after a few seconds, then play. I listened just long enough to determine the voice I heard was Tessa's talking to one of her girlfriends. I hit stop, rewind, then stop and play and listened again. This time I recognized my wife's voice immediately and hit rewind once again. After hitting play again, I heard a man's voice. Damn, I thought, it must be Tessa talking to a boy, but he sure sounds too old for her. I might want to review this conversation, I thought to myself, so I took note at where the conversation was in the tape and was just about to hit stop again when I heard something really disturbing. "Come on, you know how you love to go down on me," the voice said. I was so shocked I had to hit stop so I could catch my breath. Damn it, she's only 16 years old and obviously she's already having sex? Questions started popping up in my brain. Had she gone all the way with this guy yet? Who was he? How old was he? I wondered if her mother knew. Was she on the pill? Shit. I had always respected the privacy of my children, but there was no way I wasn't going to listen to this entire conversation. I hit rewind again to find the start of the call. Damn, there's my wife's voice again. I must have gone too far, I said to myself. I hit fast forward just for a second, then listened again. I heard the same male voice and was just about to hit rewind again when I heard something even more shocking. Lisa's voice. "Love to do that to you. Tony, stop. I told you. We need to quit once and for all. What if Joe ever found out? What if Megan found out? Can you imagine how it would hurt them? They'd never forgive us, either of them. Lisa, how would they ever find out? Huh. I know you're not going to tell them, and I'm sure as hell not going to tell them, and we two are the only ones who know anything. Geez, Lisa, how long have we been screwing around together, and neither of them suspect a thing? If they haven't figured out anything by now, they never will." "I suppose," Lisa replied. "I just think we're pushing our luck. Don't you ever feel guilty?" "I sure do. Every time we get together, I feel guilty for days after that. I love Joe. I wouldn't hurt him for the world if he ever found out." "Lisa, he's not going to find out," Tony interrupted. "And as far as guilt goes, yeah, I feel a little guilty sometimes, but it's worth it. You know damn well Joe doesn't screw you like I do. Hell, I could write a book about some of the hot sessions you and I have had. I would too, except no one would believe it," he chuckled. "Yeah," she said with a little sigh in her voice. "I have to admit you and I are great in the sack together. We always have been." I had to stop the tape. I was having pains in my chest and I was starting to hyperventilate. I sat quietly trying to calm myself down. I took long, slow breaths through my nose and exhaled out my mouth. Am I really having a heart attack? I wondered. More than likely it's just a case of angina, I thought. I'll sit here a few more minutes and see if the pain goes away. There's a line from an old Doors song. My brain was squirming like a toad. I always thought it was a stupid line, but right then, it pretty much described my thought pattern. Lisa had known Tony Harper since high school. I knew they were boyfriend and girlfriend back then, but I didn't know if they had gone all the way with each other. It was long before I met Lisa, and I knew she wasn't a virgin, so I never really thought about it. I guess Tony had some kind of partial scholarship to college and made up the rest with student loans and grants, but Lisa never went past high school. A few weeks after meeting Lisa, he was introduced to me at a party as one of her longtime friends, but he had been married for a while by that time, and I just never thought of him as any kind of threat. Stupid me. The pain in my chest was starting to subside some, so I was pretty sure I wasn't having a heart attack. I thought I should go for a walk, get some air. Maybe a little exercise will help calm me down. I was going to get up from my chair but couldn't. There was still more tape to play. I'm nuts, I thought. Why torture myself anymore? But it was like looking at a bad accident on the highway. You know you shouldn't. You really don't want to see all the blood and guts, but you just can't help yourself. I had to listen to the rest of the tape. I hit play. So you'll meet me Sunday morning then? Damn. I had to stop it and take another deep breath. Son of a bitch, I was getting irate about now. She was just telling him they shouldn't see each other anymore, and now they're talking about screwing around on Sunday. There was a lot of anger behind my finger when I hit the play button again. I don't know, Tony. I really think we should stop while we're ahead. Lisa, for Pete's sake, what has you so paranoid? Joe's going golfing with his buddies, right? Yeah, as far as I know. He goes every Sunday morning unless it's pouring out, and it's supposed to be a beautiful day, Tony responded. By the time he has a couple of beers after the round, it's almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon by the time he gets home. You meet me at the Days Inn at 10, that gives us plenty of time. I'll get there early and get the room, then I'll text you with the number like always. I don't know, Tony. I really don't feel right doing this anymore. Come on, he said, coaxing her. I even have a gift for you. It's waiting at Tonatoria's secret. A gift? What did you buy me? Now I detected some excitement in her voice. Just the prettiest little black nightie they make, that's all. I bought it the other day and told them to hold it for you. Just go up to the counter and give them your name. You might have to show them some ID, but it's there waiting for you. And just how am I supposed to explain it to Joe? She questioned. Just tell him you bought it for him. Don't let him see it right away though, not until after Sunday anyway. I want to be the first to get a gander of you in that thing. It's almost completely see-through. Oh, and don't wear the panties. I heard Lisa giggle. I still don't know, Tony. I'll tell you what, if I don't show by 10:30 start without me. Yeah, right, he sneered, sounding like a man who was confident she would show. I'll see you Sunday. Don't forget the nightie. I won't, replied Lisa. I wanted to get some new shoes anyway. I'll pick it up today. They said their goodbyes and hung up. I was starting to get that pain in my chest again. I hadn't even noticed the tears running down my face until I turned the recorder off. I sat back in my chair and just stared at the wall in front of me. There was no continuity to my thought. None whatsoever. It was almost like being in a trance. It couldn't be possible, I thought. I'd known this woman almost 20 years. Someone had to be playing a joke. Of course I knew it was real, but there's that denial thing. I never really experienced it before, but that's what was happening. I just couldn't believe what I had heard with my own ears. Come and get it. I heard Lisa yell from the kitchen. Shit, dinner time already. How the hell am I supposed to sit there pretending everything is okay? I'm not even hungry. I sat quietly at the table trying to eat. It hadn't even occurred to me until Karen started telling about her day at school. I forgot all about her late-night phone foe. Huh, I thought to myself. Now I have 2 dickheads to deal with, and they will be dealt with. I made myself that promise. Honey, do you feel all right? Asked my loving wife. You're awful quiet tonight and you've barely eaten a thing. Actually, I don't feel very well, I told her. I think I'll go out for a walk, get some fresh air. I walk a lot when things are bothering me. It helps me think. The fresh air helps me put things in order and look at a problem logically. I knew their plans. Should I try to get pictures through the window somehow? What a ridiculous idea. I'm not letting them get together. In fact, shithead Tony is never going to touch her again. I'm going to make sure of it. During my hour-long walk, my emotions seemed to bounce back and forth between extreme anger and extreme hurt. Sometimes I wasn't sure which I was feeling, but by the end of my walk I had a plan. At least one that would satisfy my extreme anger. It all hinged on my golf buddies, but I was pretty sure they would go along with me. I still wasn't sure how I was going to handle the extreme hurt though. When I got home I sat and watched some TV with the kids before they went to bed. I could feel my wife's gaze on me from time to time. She looked concerned and I had no doubt that she was. She loved me. I knew that. It's what made it so damn hard to understand how she could do that to me. To us, it just didn't make sense. How do you feel? Any better after your walk? She asked. Maybe a little but not much, I responded. I think I'll turn in early, good night, I said as I started upstairs. I noticed Lisa watching me again with a concerned look. She had a right to be worried, I thought. I pretended to be asleep when she slipped in beside me about an hour later. Actually, sleep would elude me entirely for the night as I lay there analyzing every option I could come up with. After all, there were the kids to think about too. I stared at Lisa lying next to me as the early morning light barely filtered through the drapes. What the hell, I thought. I might as well get up. It's too late to get any sleep now anyway. I gently got up. I really wasn't in the mood to face Lisa, so I used the bathroom down the hall to shower, got dressed, and left. I was almost 2 hours early for work, so I stopped at a restaurant on the way in. I was just finishing my eggs when my cell rang. Hello, I answered. Joe, what's the matter? Are you angry with me for some reason? No, honey, why? There was a hesitation on the other end. Well, you were awful quiet last night, and then you got up early this morning and left without waking me, giving me a kiss or anything. I can't remember the last time you left without kissing me goodbye. What's wrong, honey? What did I do? I realized I was going to give myself away if I wasn't careful. I still didn't know what I was going to do about my marriage, but I did know what I was going to do about good old Tony, and I didn't want her canceling their Sunday rendezvous. I'm sorry, honey, you didn't do anything. I wasn't feeling well last night, and I didn't sleep very well, that's all. I woke up so early this morning I just decided I might as well come into work, and I thought I let you sleep. Are you sure that's all? She asked. Really, honey, that's all there is to it. She really did sound concerned. I hoped she didn't call it off. Just then I wished I had thought to reconnect the recorder. If she called shithead and canceled, I wouldn't even know. Oh well, I thought, I'm going ahead with my plan anyway. If it turns out to be a dud, I'll keep the recorder hooked up and catch them next time. As soon as I knew my golfing buddies were at their jobs, I gave them each a call and asked them to meet me after work the following day. I had a big favor to ask of them. When I got home, I made sure I was more lovey-dovey toward my wife. While she was in the kitchen, I changed tapes in the recorder and plugged it back in. I still wasn't sure if I had spooked Lisa. I thought if I had, I might see that black nightgown thinking she might wear it for me, but no such luck. The next day was Friday. I told Lisa I'd probably stop off for a few drinks after work. She didn't seem concerned and asked only that I not make it home too late. That night I met my golfing buddies, and I told them what I needed of them. I did not lay out my entire plan, but told them only what they needed to know. I also said it could be risky and they might be questioned by the police. I said if anyone wanted to back out, now was the time to let me know, but each of them swore me their allegiance. After they left, I ordered another scotch and sat thinking. I knew exactly what I was going to do with Tony, but my mind was mush when it came to my wife. All I kept thinking of was my kids and how much I loved Lisa. I kept thinking, if only she would wear that black nightie for me before Sunday. Somehow it was symbolic to me. If she wore it for me, that would mean she was throwing the affair back into his face. At least that's what I thought it would mean to me. I was trying to give her a way out, and only if... Again, when I saw it wasn't going to happen Friday night, I faked being too tired to make love. Saturday morning, we all had breakfast together. I guess I was a little melancholy because Lisa asked if I felt okay. I assured her I was fine and said I had to do some shopping for an upcoming home project I was planning. I got in my car thinking to myself that may have been the very last time we ever have breakfast together as a family. My first stop was the local Salvation Army store. I found everything I needed, including a bonus. Next stop was the hardware store where I bought 4 small, flat magnets. I was able to pick up a tool for unscrewing the core from a tire valve at a sports store that had racing bikes and supplies. My last stop was the drugstore. I was back home by early afternoon with everything I needed. I spent the rest of the day just banging around the garage and doing some yard work, anything to stay busy. I had an overwhelming propensity to scream at her and ask Lisa just what she thought she was doing, but I couldn't. I really needed to take my revenge on Tony, so I had to hold it together for one more night. Lisa always made a pot of decaffeinated coffee after dinner, so I smashed up 2 of the non-subscription sleeping tablets I bought at the drugstore and slipped them into her coffee. By 9 o'clock, she was apologizing to me, saying she didn't know why, but she couldn't keep her eyes open anymore. I told her it was okay, and she should get some sleep. I told her she obviously needed it. Lisa kissed me goodnight and was sound asleep by the time I checked her at 10. The kids were all in bed not long after that, but I could not go to bed yet myself. In just a few hours, I would start Operation Payback. To make sure no one was awakened by the pimply-faced shithead that started this whole thing, I disconnected the phones, then laid down on the couch and set the alarm on my smartphone for 1:30. I can't say it was a restful 2.5 hours, but if all went well, I was hoping for another few hours in a little while. I stealthily checked in on my wife and kids making sure they were all fast asleep before slipping out of the house. The street was deserted as I walked the half-mile to my destination. On my way to work several times I had noticed a house that had 3 cars and a 2-car garage. Of course one of the cars always sat out, but to keep it clean and I suppose to protect it from the elements, they always kept a tarp-like cover over it. They must not have driven the 3rd vehicle very much because I noticed it would sit for weeks without being moved, so I decided to gamble that they would not be using it for a little while, and targeted it for supplying me with a set of license plates other than my own. I snuck into the yard next to the garage and raised the tarp enough to get a screwdriver into the screws holding the plates. In Illinois, we have them both in the front and back of our cars. In less than 2 minutes, I had both plates and was making my way back home undetected. With a little luck, the owners won't even drive the car for a while, making the discovery of the stolen plates very unlikely for some time. I went into my garage and soldered the small magnets I got at the hardware store to each corner in the back of both plates. Now I would be able to attach and remove them to the metal license plates of another vehicle within seconds. I stuck them into the duffel bag I bought earlier and put everything in the trunk of my car. I checked the time and still had over 3 hours before I had to get up for Sunday morning golf with my friends. I quietly lay down next to my cheating wife and went asleep. After turning off the alarm, I rolled over to check my wife. She was still out like a light. I really didn't want to talk to her, so I used the hall bathroom again to shower and get dressed. Before leaving the house, I switched phones with her. They were identical aesthetically, so I knew she wouldn't notice, at least until she realized she wasn't getting Tony's text with his room number. I would be getting that. Before leaving, I took the little tool I got at the bike shop and slightly unscrewed the core from her left rear tire valve. I tested it by rubbing some spit in the end of the valve and watching the air bubbles. I wanted a very slow leak, just enough to give her a low tire and keep her from being on time for their little sex fest. When I got to the course, I made sure I was seen and heard by as many people as possible. I talked to the club pro about a non-existent glitch in my swing. While waiting for the rest of my foursome, I stopped in the bar for a cup of coffee and an English muffin. I shamelessly flirted with the pretty barmaid to make sure she remembered me being there. When the rest of the guys arrived, we headed toward the first tee where I striped one right down the middle. We played our regular game until the 3rd tee. That's the one that's right next to the parking lot and where I parted company for a while. Josh gave me the keys to his SUV as planned. I switched the duffel bag from my car to his and took off. Halfway between the motel and the golf course is a large forest preserve. I drove all the way to the back where no one ever goes and used the porta potty to change my clothes and shoes. Next, I attached the plates I had stolen to the SUV and within minutes was on my way to the motel parking lot to wait for Tony's text. I didn't have a long wait. Number 112 popped up on Lisa's phone. I backed up close to the door of his room and took a deep breath as I exited the vehicle with the short wooden baseball bat I found at the Salvation Army. I pulled the ski mask down over my face as I knocked on the door. Wow, that was quick, you. Tony never got a chance to finish his sentence. I used the end of the bat as a battering ram, jamming it into his stomach as he opened the door. He folded at the waist and gasped for breath as I pushed him further into the room, kicking the door shut with my heel. Before he had a chance to recover, I swung the bat into the side of his knee, soliciting a painful scream as he tumbled to the floor. He rolled over on his back, reaching for his leg, but I viciously brought the bat down again hard against his wrist. This time he made more of a crying noise as we both heard the sound of bones breaking. His eyes were closed in agony as I completed my mission with 2 more mighty swings, one to his ankle and the last breaking his elbow. Planning my revenge took some time, but the act itself took only about 45 seconds, if that. Kind of anticlimactic, I thought, while driving back to the forest preserve. After changing back to my golfing attire, I removed the stolen plates and stuck them into the duffel bag along with everything else, including the bat. I dropped 3 house bricks in the bag, zipped it up, and tossed it into the swamp in the woods. That took care of any and all evidence tying me in with what happened to poor old Tony. As I got close to the course, I called my friends and asked what hole they were on. Jack said they were just finishing the 7th hole and would be on the 8th tee by the time I got there. I erased the call from her history as well as the text from Tony. I handed Josh his keys back and teed off. I must have had some residual adrenaline because I unleashed one 310 yards. Too bad it was 20 yards to the right of the fairway. We all stopped at the bar for lunch after the front 9, where I again made sure the barmaid remembered me being there. We had lunch, then left to play the rest of the round. When we finished after 18, not wanting to deviate from our normal routine, we all sat around complaining about our games over a beer before heading home. I just had to smile to myself on the drive. I was pretty sure I had pulled off the perfect crime. I was well aware of the strides in forensic science, but there was no physical evidence of any kind to link me to the scene. Even if they vacuumed my car for carpet fibers from the motel, they would come up dry. Of course, they would suspect I had hired someone, but there were no withdrawals from my checking or savings accounts to suggest that, so let them prove it. Yup, I was pretty confident I was in the clear. I pulled into my drive about the same time I always do after Sunday golf, and was surprised to see my wife's car in the same spot as where I had left it. The tire was completely flat by now. Another surprise was Lisa greeting me with a smile and a peck on the cheek as I walked in the door. I looked around and saw all the kids were out doing their own thing. We were alone. "You're in a good mood," I said with a slight edge to my voice. "Did you drive the car this morning?" "Drive the car?" "No." "Why do you ask? Where would I go?" "Oh, I don't know. I thought you'd go out to meet your lover, Tony, at the motel." "Shit, I really didn't mean to say that. It just came out." "Oh well," I thought. It had to come out sooner or later, and I had just made up my mind in that instant as to what I had to do about my marriage. Lisa's eyes widened at the same moment her mouth dropped open. Every bit of energy seemed to drain from her body as she stumbled back, reaching for the arm of the couch. She just collapsed on top of its support. I saw her eyes instantly flood with tears as she realized her secret was uncovered. "You did know," she muttered. "I thought something was wrong for the last couple of days, but I prayed it was something else." I watched as Lisa tried to stay in control of her emotions. "I'm so sorry, Joe. I'm so very, very sorry. I didn't go today because I'm calling it quits. It's over, Joe. I'll never see him again. I promise, never again." She looked up, her expression imploring forgiveness. How I wished I could give it to her, but I couldn't. "I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow, Lisa. A one-time thing in a drunken moment of weakness I could have forgiven, but not this. Not this kind of ongoing betrayal. Not the complete lack of respect for me and the family. This goes way beyond forgiveness, Lisa. I'm sorry." I watched her expression turn to terror as I spoke. "After 18 years I thought I knew you so well, but after all this time, you've proven to be someone other than the honorable, trustworthy person I thought you were." I asked where the kids were. With no life in her voice, she told me Tessa, Karen, and Mark, our 12-year-old boy, were all out with friends. Only Cheryl, our youngest daughter, was home in her room. I acknowledged her reply and told her I was going upstairs to take a shower. When I got to our room, I saw Lisa's purse was still sitting on the dresser, so I took the opportunity to switch the phones back. I wiped my fingerprints from hers as I returned it and put my own phone into my pocket. As I walked to our closet to select a shirt and slacks, I saw it, a beautiful black see-through teddy hanging on her side. For the last couple of nights it had represented a symbol of hope. Now the flimsy material dangled in front of me, taunting me, reminding me of Lisa's disloyalty and deceit. Until that moment, my thoughts were of anger and plotting my revenge. But that was all over. The pervasive hurt and pain washed through my soul, ripping and gouging pieces from my heart along its wretched route. Days of pent-up anxiety suddenly surfaced as I tore the garment from its post. With my face contorted to resemble a monster and my teeth grinding against my strained jaw, I shredded the fabric to pieces just before collapsing into a ball of tearful despair and hopelessness. "Oh my God," I heard. I looked up and saw Lisa standing in the doorway with her hand to her mouth. "What have I done?" "I'm so sorry, Joe. I love so much. You were never supposed to know. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry." It was over. 18 years of happiness, now just a memory. Lisa ran to the bed and flopped down face first, bawling like a baby. I fought to control my reactions, raised up from the floor, and continued into the shower without a word. I never realized before taking that shower how emotionally complex we humans can be. As I stood under the hot water, I think I experienced every feeling known to man. There was love, hate, anger, and pain. There were thoughts of more revenge, but also of leniency. There were sentiments of inadequacy for not being man enough to keep my woman. I felt like a fool for not detecting her deceit before now, but triumphant in my ultimate discovery. My reactions bounced around inside me, often colliding, and sometimes becoming interwoven within themselves. If I could separate them, I'd say the pain was the worst. I loved Lisa with all my being, except for the pain of losing someone close to you. The betrayal of someone you love so intensely has to hurt the most. It's a pain that buries itself deep within your soul and strangles your heart. I thought back through our history together. Where did I go wrong? What did I do to lose her respect? When did I lose it? I could feel my whole persona changing. I was no longer the nice, fun-loving guy everyone knew. A darker side of me was emerging. A side I didn't even know was there. A side I didn't think I was going to like very much. Never in my life had I ever done anything like I did to Tony in that motel room. But what was even more disturbing than the act itself was my lack of any remorse. It was like good and evil was fighting for my humanity. I still loved Lisa. When you spend that much time, share so many dreams, experience so much of life, and even bring new life into the world with one person, you don't just turn the love off like a light switch. But at the same time, I could feel an acute resentment building, doing its best to push that love aside. But to what end? What will fill the void? Loneliness? After stepping out of the shower, for some reason, and don't ask me why, I didn't feel comfortable letting Lisa see me naked. I cracked the bathroom door a little to let out some of the steam, then toweled off and dressed before going back out into the bedroom. Lisa, although she had run out of tears, was still lying in the bed sobbing. Had I looked into the face of a stranger who was obviously in so much agony, I would have been able to muster up more compassion than I could for my own wife at that moment. "Joe," she said between sniffles, "help me. I can't even imagine how much you're hurting from what I've done. Please, help me find the words to say I'm sorry. Tell me what I can do to save our marriage. I don't want a divorce. I want you. I love you. Joe, please believe me." "Lisa, right now I don't know what to believe." Just then I heard the front door open and the sound of several young female voices downstairs. I still had my original problem to deal with and thought this might be a good opportunity. If nothing else, it would take my mind off my marriage struggles for a little while. As soon as I hit the bottom step and was revealed, I got an exuberant salutation from Tessa, accompanied by a hug around the neck. "Hi, Daddy," greeted Karen with a kiss to my cheek. "Do you know Beth?" she asked while her friend extended her hand. "Hi, Beth," I welcomed her with a gentle handshake. "Girls, I'm glad you're here," I started. "We've got a little problem. The other night, I got a call from a young man at 2 in the morning asking for you, Karen." "Me?" I could tell she was legitimately surprised. "Yes, honey, and he wasn't very nice. He called back the next night also, but I got him on tape that time. I have the tape in my office. Let me get it. I want to see if you can tell me who he is from recognizing his voice for me." The girls took a seat in the living room while I got the tape and returned. I already had it all queued up to the little creep. I hit the play button and set the recorder on the coffee table so the girls could hear it clearly. "Dad." "I'm sorry," said Karen. "I don't know who that is." "Me neither," said her friend Beth. "I do," snarled Tessa. "That's Danny Caldwell. He's a senior and the biggest jerk in our school." "He's a senior and he's calling Karen?" "I would think he'd be calling you," I said. "He's probably calling her to get back at me, Dad. He's been trying to get me to go out on a date with him all year, but I just tell him to flake off. Last week he tried to pull my skirt up in the back and I turned around and slapped him. He's probably pissed at me and figures he's going to take it out on Karen." Tessa looked at her younger sister. "I'm sorry, Karen. I had no idea he'd pull something like this." I looked at Karen, whose expression said she was a little frightened listening to Tessa. "Don't worry, honey, don't be scared. Daddy's going to take care of everything," I said, trying to be as reassuring as possible. I looked at Tessa again. "Do you know where he lives by any chance?" I asked. "Ah, he lives in the subdivision behind the grocery store someplace, but I don't know the exact house," she responded. "That's okay. As long as I have some idea. There can't be many Caldwells living back there, and if there's more than one, I'll just knock on doors until I find one with a Danny living behind it." I picked up the tape recorder and started moving toward my office. "Girls, what are your plans tonight?" "Nothing special, Dad," answered Tessa with Karen's agreement. "Okay, I'm going to make a couple CDs of this tape. Tessa, I'll need to borrow your little portable player tonight," I told her. "We're also going to have a family meeting tonight, so I want to make sure you're all here around 9 tonight." "Do you know where Mark is?" "Yeah, he's over at Tommy's house, Dad, but he'll be back long before that." "Okay, good," I said. I still had no idea where this was all going to lead. One thing was for sure, though. The relationship between my wife and me was going to be noticeably strained, and I didn't see any reason to hold out telling the kids what was happening. They were obviously going to find out sooner or later. It might as well be sooner. I sure wasn't looking forward to it, though. But first I had something else to take care of. I was already sitting at my computer making a couple CDs of shitheads calls when Tessa came in with her portable player. It's just a little bigger than an actual CD and has its own speaker so you can listen to it without headphones. "Dad," she said in a small voice as she handed it to me. "Mom's in your bedroom crying. I had her when I went up to get this. What's going on? Are you guys fighting?" "I'm sorry, baby. Yes, we are. We have some very serious issues we have to deal with, but right now Mommy needs some time to be alone, and I'm going to take care of this problem with Danny Caldwell. So please, don't say anything to your brother or sisters just yet." "Okay, honey?" I looked into Tessa's face, and she was already starting to cry. God, this was going to be hard. I thought as I rose up from my chair and put my arms around her. "Honey, I said. Sometimes bad things happen, and there isn't much you can do except go on. Please, I'll do all the explaining tonight. Okay, she said, being brave. She left and went back up to her room. She knew there was trouble, but she didn't know the extent of it. Not yet, at least. I sat back down at my computer and looked for Caldwell in the area where my daughter said he lived. There was only one. I wondered if the school had a policy on bullying, so I went to their website to check it out. Turns out they have a zero policy, caught once and you're out. Then I wondered about our town ordinances. There was good news there as well. The local courts were cracking down and took a very dim view of bullying. I felt pretty confident armed with the info I had, so I took one of the CDs I made, Tessa's portable player, and headed in the direction of Caldwell's house. On the way over, I realized I had to calm myself down. I guess I was feeling overwhelmed with everything that was happening in such a short span of time. What I really wanted to do was give this a whole kid the same treatment I gave Tony, but of course that was impossible, so I just have to settle on scaring him and his parents to death. Yes? Asked the tall gentleman who outweighed me by about 20 pounds, answering the door. Does Danny Caldwell live here? I asked. Yes, can I help you? I'm his father. I wasted no time. This is your son calling for my 14-year-old daughter at 2 in the morning, I said, hitting the play button. About the time he realized what he was hearing, his wife came up behind him asking what was going on. It seems we have a problem, honey, he told her. Won't you come in? He asked me, opening the door wider. They offered me a seat on the sofa and immediately started to apologize for their son's behavior. Is he here? I asked. I would like to talk to him. Actually, he's out with a friend, but I'll call him, replied the father. I was surprised. I had expected them to be defensive or make excuses for their son, but that was not the case. When Danny answered his cell, his dad told him to be home in 15 minutes, or not to come home at all. I turned down the wife's suggestion for coffee. A caffeine jolt was the last thing I needed by that time. As soon as Danny walked in the door, I rose up and approached him, holding out my hand with a smile before his parents could say anything. He was completely unaware of who I was as I took a hold of his hand with an extremely firm grip. Hello, Danny, I said, squeezing his hand with all my might. I'm Mr. Cooper, Tessa and Karen's father. His eyes got as big as his mouth. He grimaced from my handshake and turned pale as he tried to pull his hand away. I see you're surprised to see me, I said, looking him directly in the face and smiling at the terror I saw in his eyes. He was stumbling for something to say. Sit down, Danny. I've been talking with your folks, explaining the situation, and now I want to explain it to you. I sat back down on the couch where I was sitting before. Danny sat in a chair not far away and looked at his parents, trying to decipher how much trouble he was in. I pushed the play button and watched as he recognized whose voice he was hearing. I hit the stop button and looked over at him. Are you aware of your school's policy on bullying, Danny? You can look it up if you don't believe, but basically what it says is if a student is caught bullying another student, they will be expelled from school. Wouldn't that be a shame? Being in school for 12 years, then just before graduation, getting expelled? Danny was just sitting there with his mouth open. I think he still couldn't believe he had been caught. There are also laws against bullying. I doubt that you would actually spend any time in jail, but your dad would have to fork out money for a lawyer, that's for sure. You'd have to go to court, and you can bet I'd be there to testify against you. You'd probably wind up doing community service, like those guys in the bright orange jumpsuits picking up trash on the side of the highway. If that happens, I'm going to make sure all your friends from school know about it, so they can drive by and say hi. I could see tears welling up in Danny's eyes. Good. He was grasping the situation. He wasn't as stupid as I thought he was, but there was one more thing. Now, Danny, here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow you're going to get as many of your friends together as you can, and you're all going to find Tessa and Karen. When you do, you're going to apologize, sincerely apologize. If I get home tomorrow night and they tell me it didn't happen, I'm playing this tape for the principal and the police chief. I will have you arrested for bullying, disturbing the peace, assault, and malicious conduct. And as I said, I will take time off from work and go to court as many times as I have to testify against you and make sure you're convicted. Do I make myself clear? He put his head down and nodded, but that wasn't good enough for his dad, who had remained silent the whole time I talked. Answer the man, he bellowed. Yes, sir, Mr. Cooper. I'll apologize tomorrow, I promise, he said. What about Mr. Cooper? You owe him an apology for waking him up in the middle of the night and making him go through all this, his dad angrily declared. I'm sorry, Mr. Cooper. I promise it won't happen again. Oh, you can be sure of that because I'm taking the cell phone away from you, said his dad, and I'm not as easygoing as Mr. Cooper. Give me your keys, he said, reaching out his hand. The kid gave his car keys to his dad. You're also grounded for a month. No going out, no dates, and no having friends over. He and Mrs. Caldwell both told me they were sorry as I left. I had no idea if I could really have Danny arrested on all those charges. I wasn't even sure I could use the tape, but I felt pretty certain neither Danny nor his parents were going to test me, and I doubted very much that I would be hearing from Danny again. Now, if I could only solve my marriage problems that easily, I thought on the way home. When I walked into the house, the kids were all sitting in front of the TV, watching the latest Pulsar animated movie. I was hoping Lisa would be fixing dinner by then, but I can't say I was really surprised to see the kitchen was dark. I greeted the kids and announced we would be having pizza shortly as I dialed for its delivery, then went upstairs to check on Lisa. I listened at the closed bedroom door for a second and thought of knocking before going in. Screw it, I thought. This is my house. I'll be damned if I'm going to knock before going into my own bedroom. I opened the door and walked in. The only light was what followed me from the hall. "Are you awake?" I asked the dimly lit figure. "Yes," she muttered weakly. "What time is it?" "It's 7:30. I ordered pizza. It should be here in half an hour, so you should clean yourself up some and go downstairs to eat with us. Afterward, we're going to have a family meeting and tell the kids." "Oh, Joe," she interrupted. "We don't have to say anything to the kids yet, do we? We can work this out. Please, let's not say anything. Let's give it some time anyway." "Lisa, I'm not so sure we can work things out. I've never been so hurt or disappointed in my life." I heard a latent sniffle in the dark. "Whether we get through this or not, I really don't know right now. I do know I need some time to think, and I can't do that here. I'm moving out tomorrow after work. Nothing permanent. Not yet anyway. I'll probably check into that hotel on Mannheim that has weekly rates. The kids already know you're up here crying. They're not stupid. They know something is wrong. I won't give them any details, but we have to let them know what's happening." I saw her getting up and heading for the bathroom. "Okay, honey," she replied in a sad-sounding whisper. "Whatever you feel is best." She got halfway to the bathroom and stopped dead. "Honey, please don't divorce me. I don't know how yet, but some way I'll make this up to you, I promise." I didn't say anything. I just turned around and left. I went down to the kitchen and started setting the table. Both Lisa and I tried to act normal, but as I said, the kids weren't stupid. Hardly anyone spoke a word while eating, and everyone remained seated when we were done. "Okay, guys," I started. "By the sad looks on everyone's face, you already know what this meeting is all about. Your mother and I are having some marital problems." "Dad, are you?" Mark started to butt in. I put up my hand to stop him. "Hold on, let me finish, then I'll answer your questions. This is obviously going to affect you kids, but I want you to know the problems your mother and I are having have nothing to do with anything any of you did. This is between your mother and me. We both love you all very much. Does everyone understand that?" Everyone nodded their heads slowly. "Good. Also, this does not mean that your mother and I don't still love each other. Unfortunately, love isn't the only thing that holds a couple together. Relationships are complicated. There are lots of other factors involved, and they all play a part when two people are happy with one another. Sometimes things happen to put a strain of a relationship, that's all." "Now, Mark, you had a question. Are you guys going to get a divorce?" he asked. "Oh no, honey, Dad," and I raised my hand again, this time to stop my wife from talking. "There will be no more lies in this family," I declared, looking at her with a stern expression. I turned back to Mark. "The truth is, I just don't know right now, Mark. I'd say the chances are about 50-50. I heard Lisa gasp when she heard the odds I gave for staying together. She obviously still had no idea of the kind of pain I was going through. "I'm going to move into a motel for a while so your mother and I can think things out. That does not mean I'm abandoning you guys. If you need me, I'll be right down the street. You have my cell. You can call any time and I'll be here." "Oh, Daddy," cried Gwen, our youngest, as she came over and hugged me around the neck. I hugged her back and kissed her on the cheek. I looked around the table. There wasn't a dry eye in the place, including Lisa's or mine. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest again, as everyone made me so aware of how our happy family could be torn apart. The family unit, I thought, that's what they call it in all those psychology books. I never thought of it as a unit. To me, it was my family, the wife and kids. I was just now realizing how fragile a family can be and how easily it can be destroyed. I looked at Lisa to see if she had anything to say, but she remained silent, so I finished the meeting myself. "Okay, guys, that's all I wanted to tell you. Are there any more questions?" "Why?" asked Karen. "You and Mom have always been so happy. You never even fight. Not like the other kids' parents. What happened?" I saw a worried look in Lisa's eyes. "No, I wasn't going to tell them of their mom's infidelity. If we did some way patch things up, the kids would never have to know. Honey, like I said, even when two people love each other, things sometimes happen. That's all I can say for now." I won't be moving out until tomorrow, so why don't you guys pick out a good movie? Mom will pop some popcorn, and we'll all go watch some TV. Come on, I said, trying to sound upbeat again. Gwen scurried off my lap with the others in tow, heading for the cabinet where we store all the movies we've collected over the years. I'll clear the table. You start on the popcorn, I said, getting up. Joe, I'm sorry, honey. I never wanted to hurt you. And yet you did, I said curtly. The rest of the evening was spent watching a thriller we hadn't seen in years. It was suspenseful and kept everybody's mind off their problems as we all sat on the couch munching away. When it came time for the kids to go to bed, I got extra big hugs and kisses from all of them. Before going to bed herself, Lisa wanted to talk more, but I wasn't in the mood for listening to her say how sorry she was again. I told her I knew she was sorry, but it didn't really help. I needed time to sort out my own feelings and come to terms with the hurt. I couldn't believe it when she asked me to go upstairs and make love to her. In spite of all the rhetoric and all the apologies, she still didn't get it. She had no idea the kind of pain I was going through. I felt like laughing in her face, but I didn't. I kept my cool and told her I would be spending the night on the couch. As I lay there, trying to get some sleep, my mind wandered through the events of the past few days. Once again, I focused on the kaleidoscope of feelings ricocheting around inside of me. Earlier in the day, I sat on the floor of our bedroom feeling like there was absolutely no hope. Since then, however, I started to feel guilty about giving up. Was my family so unimportant to me that I would just throw in the towel? Without the slightest notion of how things were going to end, I finally drifted off to sleep. The next day, I had enough to do at work to keep my mind occupied and off of my problems until my secretary told me Lisa was on the line. Reluctantly, I picked up. Hello, Lisa. What's up? There was a short pause before she started talking. Joe, did you hear about Tony? You mean that he's been screwing my wife? I said sarcastically. Yeah, I heard all about it. She hesitated again, this time even longer before speaking. No, Joe, that's not what I mean. He's in the hospital. No kidding. For what? Somebody beat him with a baseball bat. He's in pretty bad shape. Well, what do you know? It couldn't have happened to a more deserving guy, I said venomously. How did you find out about it? It's in today's newspaper, she told me. Well, if you think I'm going to feel sorry. Joe, it happened in the motel when he was waiting for me. What, Lisa? Are you asking me if I did it? I was playing golf, remember? Do you really think you're the only wife he was banging? I heard her shocked reaction. Yeah, I said. Never even considered that, did you? I'm sure I'm not the only husband who won't be sorry he got beat up. She said nothing in response. What hospital is he in? Memorial, she said tentatively. Why? I'll have to send roses, I said, the kind with the thorns still attached. Is there anything else, Lisa? I've got a lot of work to do. No, that was all. I just wanted to tell you about. That was it, Joe, she said, still not sure if I had anything to do with Tony's beating. Oh wait, one more thing, I interjected before hanging up. Yes, Joe? I could really hear the tension in her voice now. If you're thinking of visiting a-hole in the hospital, or even sending him a get-well card, you'll end this marriage for good. Do you understand? Yes, Joe, I understand, she said softly. I'm sure I heard her starting to cry again as we hung up. For the rest of the day, I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. I knew I had to stay as far away from Tony as possible. No sense looking for trouble, but damn how I wanted to look him in the eye and tell him why his bones are going to ache from now on every time it rains. Except for the fact that I was no longer living at home, eating home-cooked meals every night, or playing with my kids, the rest of the week moved along without a hitch. I had been half expecting a visit, or at least a call, from the cops asking where I was Sunday morning, but it never came. It was strange. I had mentally prepared myself to answer all their questions and was very confident I would divert any suspicions they might have, but not getting any questions was starting to make me paranoid. Why haven't they questioned me yet? I thought. Do they have some clue that I overlooked? Are they building an airtight case as I sit here? As unlikely as that was, I was getting a little nervous, so Friday, after work, I decided to stop in at Plato's place, a great little watering hole down the street. As I walked in, I saw a familiar figure sitting at the bar. Hi, Chris. Long time no see, I said, pulling up a bar stool next to him. Both Lisa and I had known Chris and his wife, Pam, for years. They were part of a circle of friends with whom we associated, mostly at parties and get-togethers. Looks like you're ready for another, I said, motioning for the bartender. Oh yeah, thanks, he replied. What's up? You look a little down in the dumps, I mentioned. The bartender came over and I ordered another for Chris and a light beer for myself. Did you hear what happened to Tony Harper? Asked Chris. Yeah, I heard he got beat up, but that's about it. I didn't realize you guys were such good friends. Huh. Oh, we're not. I'm not bummed out about him getting beat up. In fact, I wouldn't mind working the son of a bitch over myself. I was a little surprised to hear Chris talk like that. Up until I discovered he was having an affair with Lisa, I didn't think Tony was a bad guy. And as far as I knew, most of the people in that circle of friends I talked about liked him as well. Really, I answered. I didn't know you hated the guy either. What's going on? Did you hear where he got beat up? In a motel room, he barked before I got a chance to answer. He was obviously having an affair with someone, and I have a feeling it was Pam. Okay, now Chris had my full attention. Could I have been right when I told Lisa he was probably sleeping with more than one married woman? Chris, even if he was beat up in a motel room, what makes you think he was waiting for Pam? I don't think he was waiting for her. Not this time anyway. I heard about it the other day. When I came home and told Pam, she got a really scared look on her face. I mean scared. I didn't say anything just then, but it got me thinking, so I got up in the middle of the night when she was still asleep and checked her computer. He stopped just long enough to take a swig of his rum and coke, then continued. I went into her Yahoo account and brought up her profiles. As far as I knew, she had 2 email addresses, her personal address that she uses for most things, and the address she uses for her online cooking stuff. Well, wouldn't you know, I found a third one. One I didn't even know she had. I've been trying to get into it, but I can't break the password. I've tried everything I can think of, but come up empty every time. That in itself makes me think she's hiding something. Normally she has only 3 passwords. By now, I was just as interested to find out if Tony was screwing Pam as Chris was. If he was, he may have been screwing more than just the 2 of them, and I certainly wouldn't be the only suspect anymore. Plus, I could rub Lisa's nose in it. Not that it would help anything, but yeah, I can certainly see why you would be suspicious. Have you asked her about it? No. I didn't want to confront her without any proof. What if it's something innocent? I don't want to start a big fight over nothing, he said. I had to prod him. I had to know for myself. Why would it start a fight if it's innocent? I'd flat out ask her. Sit her down in front of the email address and ask her what she uses it for. Then tell her you want to see what's in it. If everything is on the up and up, I don't see why it would be a problem. Now, if she is hiding something, then you'll know for sure. If she refuses to show you, I disconnect the computer and take it down to those wise guys, or geek groups, whatever the hell they call themselves, and tell them you want into the email address. They have ways to get in there. You're right, Joe. I sure as hell can't keep going like this. I can't hardly sleep at night wondering if Pam is screwing around on me. You're absolutely right. I'm going home right now and ask her. Well, as soon as the kid is in bed anyway, he said with a new resolve. He threw back the last of his drink, slapped me on the back, and took off like a man on a mission. I told him to call me if he needed someone to talk to, and he said he would. I figured if it was true, if Pam was having a fling, he'd called me for sure. He'd need a shoulder to cry on. If I didn't hear from him, that would probably mean Pam had some other reason for that email address. The next day was Saturday. I picked the kids up in the morning and spent the day with them. We hadn't even gotten out of the driveway yet before Mark started telling me how sad his mother was. Karen chimed in saying she doesn't hardly even speak to anyone. After that came the questions. Why was I mad at Mom? How long was I going to stay away? Then they pulled out the big guns. Gwen asked if we were ever going to be a happy family again. They were hitting me with everything they had. If only it was that easy, I thought. It wasn't as if I was living a wild bachelor's life that I couldn't tear myself away from. On the contrary, I was lonely, very lonely. I would have given almost anything to have my old life back, but right now I just couldn't do it. The following Monday, I was waiting to hear back from Chris, but it didn't happen. When I didn't hear anything from him Tuesday either, I figured whatever Pam had in the third email address didn't have anything to do with Tony. I was downright ashamed of myself when I realized a part of me was actually hoping she was having an affair. Damn, I thought. What kind of a monster had I become to wish something like that on a friend just so I could tell my wife? I told you so. By Thursday afternoon, I had pretty much forgotten about the whole thing when it told me Chris was on the phone. Hi, Chris. How are things going? I asked. Not good, Joe. Remember I told you I thought Pam was having an affair with Tony? Yeah, I was right. She was, he said as his voice started breaking up. Now I really felt like crap. I guess I didn't really think it through before. How could I have even thought about wishing this kind of hurt on someone else? I hung my head in shame and couldn't even talk for a minute. Joe, are you there? I heard from the other end of the phone. Yeah, Chris, I'm here. I'm just so sorry to hear that. I really am, I said sincerely. Thanks, he said. What a mess. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do yet. Get a divorce, I guess. Pam spent the night in the ER last night. Chris, you beat her up? No, it wasn't me. It was Megan, Tony's wife. She came over yesterday while I was still at work and beat the crap out of her right in front of our daughter. You told Megan Tony was sleeping with Pam? I asked. No. Megan was actually the one who found out about the affair. I chickened out. I never did confront Pam about that third email address, but I know now it was exactly what I thought it was. Okay, Chris, this is getting all very confusing. Maybe you should start at the beginning. Well, actually I was hoping you'd meet me for a drink at Plato's after work. I could use a little company, he said. I didn't have anything else to do. Although Chris didn't know that, I still hadn't mentioned anything about Lisa and me. I told him I'd see him later and hung up. What a soap opera this was turning into. No wonder I hadn't heard from the cops. They were probably just as confused as I was. I chuckled to myself. Chris was already starting his second rum and coke by the time I got there. I could tell he was hurting, the same kind of hurt I had gone through. Hell, still was going through. Who was I trying to kid? First, I want to say how sorry I am about Pam. How are you doing? I asked. As he turned his head toward me to answer, I saw the tears in his eyes. To tell you the truth, Joe, I don't know. I still can't believe it. We've been married more than 12 years. I trusted her, he said, shaking his head. He took another drink. So tell me, I started. You said you didn't confront Pam after all? How did you find out? And what's this about Megan beating her up? Well, by the time I got home last Friday night, I decided I didn't want to know. I just didn't think I could bear knowing Pam was screwing around behind my back, so I just tried to put it out of my mind. Chris stopped for a second, finished his drink, and motioned to the bartender for another before continuing. Of course Megan knew about Tony being found at the motel from the police report. I guess she's been asking Tony what he was doing in a motel room, but he kept stonewalling her. In the meantime, she's been working on his computer at home, but she had the same problem I did. She couldn't get past his passwords. So she found someone who went over to their house and got into Tony's secret email accounts. From what I heard, it was all there. You know Cheryl Simmons, Peter's wife? I nodded my head. He was screwing her too. Her and a couple of other women I never heard of. He took another sip from his third rum and coke. Megan and Pam had been pretty good friends through the years, so when she saw Pam's email, she lost it. She came over to the house and kicked the shit out of Pam right in front of Audrey. Audrey called me saying someone beat up her mom and she was crying. I jumped in the car and took off for home. When I got there, Pam's eye was already swollen, and she had black and blue marks all over, so I took her to the ER. At first, she wouldn't tell me what happened, but when I asked if it had anything to do with Tony, she broke down and confessed the whole thing. Chris had to stop for a minute. He wiped a tear from his eye and looked down at the bar before going on. Today, I got a call from Megan to find out if Pam was okay. I guess she got worried that she hurt Pam more than she wanted. That's when she told me how she found out. She said she had been suspicious for a while and was just about to hire a private eye when Tony got beat up. Okay, I said, so Tony was emailing all these women and he didn't have the sense to delete the emails when he was done? I asked. Apparently not, replied Chris. Were there more women? I asked, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't know, I don't think so, he answered. Just those 4, I think. At least they're the only ones Megan spoke of. Now my brain was busy wondering why there was no evidence of Lisa on his computer. Could I have been wrong? No, of course not. I have their conversation on tape, and she admitted to the affair. So why? Still, I was wondering if Megan knew about Lisa. Maybe I should warn her about opening the door if Megan shows up on our doorstep. I sure wouldn't want Megan kicking the shit out of Lisa in front of our kids no matter what she did. I told Chris I was going to hit the washroom. I checked to make sure I was alone when I got in there, and quickly rung Lisa. Hello, Karen answered. Hi, honey, it's Dad. Is your mom home? I need to speak to her a minute. Sure, Dad. She countered with exuberance. I'll get her. I could tell by her voice she was hoping I was calling to tell her mom I was coming home. I hated to disappoint them. Hello. Lisa sounded upbeat as well, like she was hoping for the same thing. Hi. Have you seen Megan Harper? I asked. Megan? No, why? I told you Tony was probably screwing more women than you. As far as I know, there were 4 others, and it looks like Megan is going around kicking the crap out of them, I told her. That's a lie, Lisa said with indignation. Tony wouldn't do that. Oh no. I heard my voice go up in volume, but I didn't care. Now I was pissed. Okay, have it your way. Stick up for the a-hole. But before you open the door for Megan, you might want to check with Pam Grant. Chris had to take her to the emergency room last night. I'm having a drink with him right now. He's talking about divorcing her. She was one of the 4. I could hear her trying to catch her breath. Oh my God, she said softly. Joe, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Please come back home. The children miss you. I miss you, please, honey. I can't talk right now. I just slipped into the washroom so I could warn you about Megan. I've got to get back and give Chris a shoulder to cry on. He's hurting bad. I wonder how many more families are going to be destroyed by good old Tony's pecker before this is all over, I said, then hit the disconnect button. Somehow I thought there would be more satisfaction to telling my wife I told you so. On my way back to the bar, I realized there was really no satisfaction at all. Families were going to break up over all this, and mine could very well be one of them. I took my seat next to Chris. He was sitting quietly just staring into his drink. I don't even think he was aware that I had returned. Did Pam say how it started, or why? You guys always seemed like a pretty happy couple to me. Why would she take such a chance? Chris didn't know it, but I was asking as much for myself as for him. To tell you the truth, Joe, she wasn't making a whole lot of sense last night. After getting beat up, then getting treated in the ER, by the time we got home she was hysterical. She opened up and just started blubbering about it. It was half confession and half apology all the time, back and forth. She finally fell asleep about 4 in the morning from total exhaustion. Again, man, I said. I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks. I didn't get any sleep at all last night. I just don't know what to do, Joe. You know, on the one hand, I have Audrey to think about. What's best for her? I felt like saying I know just how you feel, but I didn't. It was so strange, though. Here was Chris telling me exactly how I felt by describing his own feelings. I wondered if all guys went through the same kind of stuff after finding out their wives were cheating on them. Then I wondered about women whose husbands cheated on them. Do they go through the same thing? Chris and I warmed the bar stools for another hour. By the time he was talked out, he was also loaded. I had the bartender call him a cab and gave the driver his address, then went back to my motel room. All this drama wasn't helping my thought process any. I was still no closer to knowing what I was going to do than the day I packed my bags. I was also still wondering how Lisa got away without being identified as one of Tony's lovers when the other ones got caught. Then it hit me. We only had one computer in the house and everybody used it. The kids used it for homework, and I used it for various things. Lisa used it once in a while, usually to email her sister, but there was no way she would risk sending emails back and forth to Tony. I caught her with a phone call. They never communicate by email, only by phone. Lisa sure dodged a bullet there, I thought, unknowingly as it was. So, as far as I was aware, still only 3 people knew about their affair. Now I was starting to wonder if Tony would stay quiet, or would he start bragging once people knew about the others. When I picked up the kids Saturday morning again, Lisa was even quieter than she had been. I was pretty sure she was not only feeling remorseful, but now she was feeling like a fool as well. I think Lisa believed Tony and she had some kind of special connection because of their past history together. Now she knew she was just one of several women he was screwing. I know it's not nice to say, but I was loving it. As the following week progressed, I was getting antsy for more information. I'd heard nothing. It was driving me nuts. I was wishing Chris would call. He seemed to know what was going on, but I hadn't talked to him since the previous Friday, and I didn't want to call him and seem nosy. Then I thought of Megan. Sure, why not? I'll just call and tell her I was sorry to hear about what happened to Tony. Perfect. Except that her phone just rang and rang. I finally left a message on the answering machine. I wasn't really expecting her to call me back, but a little after 9 that night my cell rang. Hello. I answered before looking at the display. Hi, Joe, it's Megan Harper. Oh, Megan, you didn't have to call me back. I just called because I heard what happened to Tony and wanted to say how sorry I was. Sorry? Ha, why? She snarled. Are you the one who worked him over? She caught me by surprise and I started to stammer. No. I just meant. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to snap at you. It's been a bad few weeks, she said in a more pleasant voice. Listen, I know it's kind of late, but could you and Lisa stand a little company tonight? I really need to talk to someone. Maybe calling Megan wasn't such a good idea after all. I had to think fast. Megan, I'm still at work and think Lisa was planning on going to bed early tonight. Why don't I meet you somewhere for a drink? It's on me. Are you sure that would be okay with Lisa? She asked. The last thing I want to do is cause problems in any more marriages. Don't worry about it, I told her. There's no problem with us having a couple of drinks together, I assured her. It must be nice to have that kind of trust in a relationship, she said. I almost choked. I told her I'd meet her at the Queen's Crown, a quiet little bar in her neighborhood. I spotted her as soon as I walked in. She was sitting at a little table in the back corner where we could talk quietly. As I got closer, I could see the effect all this was having on her. There were dark circles under her eyes, and they were red and puffy as if she'd been crying recently. The roots were showing under her dyed blonde hair, and it didn't look like she washed it in a week. Hi, Joe. She greeted me with an obviously forced smile. Please have a seat. She gestured for the waitress. I ordered a light beer, then turned my attentions to Megan. So, how much do you know? She asked. I suppose you heard that I attacked Pam Grant last week, she said. I thought it was probably better not to lie, so I admitted I had talked to Chris. That son of a bitch husband of mine has been cheating on me, she blurted out. Not just with one woman. Oh no, not him, with several. One of whom was Pam. I just saw red. I stormed over to her house, and before I knew it, she was down on the floor and I was kicking her. I watched her hand shake as she took a sip of her white wine. I'm really surprised I'm not sitting in jail. I guess she feels too guilty to press charges. Anyway, I saw an attorney today and filed for divorce. That's where I was when you called. Megan, I'm so sorry, I said, meaning every word. Chris told me besides Pam, Cheryl Simmons was involved and 2 more women. Anyone I know? I asked, fishing. No, I don't think you know the others. They were 2 304s from where he works, she stated. One of whom was divorced but the other one is married, at least for the time being. I'm sure that'll be another marriage on the rocks because of my beloved husband, she derided. It felt like a big boulder was lifted off my shoulders. There was no doubt in my mind now that Megan knew nothing about Lisa. Now if Tony can only be trusted to keep his mouth shut. Just then Megan said something that made me even more comfortable. Don't tell anyone I said this, but I think Pete Simmons is the one who worked Tony over. Pete? Why? What makes you think he did it? I asked with genuine shock. I don't know. I don't have any proof. He just seems like the type that would do something like that. You know, a no-nonsense kind of guy. The kind of guy you don't want to cross. She of course didn't realize it, but she hurting my feelings. I wanted to ask, what about me? I'm a no-nonsense kind of guy too, but I obviously couldn't. So, speaking of Tony, when does he come home? I asked. He doesn't. She said it like she meant it. He was released from the hospital last Tuesday, but he'll be in a nursing home for therapy for the next 3 months. That's the maximum length of time his insurance will pay for. I had all the locks changed already and my attorney said I would have no problem being able to stay in the house, at least until the divorce is final. Tony will just have to find an apartment when he gets out of that place. Holy cripe, I exclaimed. 3 months in a nursing home. It sounds like whoever did beat him did a good job. Oh, they sure did. The surgeon who tried putting him back together again wasn't too encouraging. Some of the bones around his ankle were so splintered and smashed up there wasn't a lot they could do. He'll never walk without pain again. That's if he ever walks again at all, she declared. The doctor said only time will tell. Geez, I said. I had no idea he was that bad. Yeah, I doubt very much if he'll ever be able to work again. I just shook my head. I supposed I should have felt some remorse, but I didn't. My mind quickly flashed back to when I used Tony for batting practice. If there was any remorse at all, it was that I never got to his balls. I guess I should have gone after them first, but it wasn't like I'd had a lot of experience with that kind of thing. By the time I hit his elbow, he was rolled up in a tight, little ball and screaming in pain. I just couldn't afford the time it would have taken to try and unravel him enough to get a shot between his legs. Too bad, I thought. Oh well, it sounds like I got him better than I had realized. I'll just have to live with my disappointment. What are you going to do when you're a free woman? I asked, changing the subject. I didn't want to talk about Tony anymore. I'm thinking about moving back to Grand Rapids. That's where I'm from. My dad passed away a couple years ago, but my mom is still alive, and I have a brother who still lives there. Plus, I still have friends in the area, she said with the first real smile she made all night. For as long as I had known Megan, we never really talked much. We made up for it that night. I think she was just happy to get her mind off her troubles for a while. The first indication of the time was when I unconsciously yawned. Oh my goodness, she said, looking at her watch. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. You better call Lisa, she'll be worried about you. Oh God, Joe, I didn't mean to keep you out this late. I hope Lisa won't be mad. I could see she was genuinely concerned about making trouble. Please, Megan, don't worry. I'm sure Lisa is sound asleep. Whatever you do though, don't call her saying you're sorry. I can guarantee she won't even know what time I get in. I told her, being pleased with how cleverly I actually stated the truth. Okay, Joe, I won't say anything. Thank you so much, she said with another smile. I really needed someone to talk with tonight. She gave me a peck on the cheek, and we both took off in different directions. I didn't tell her, of course, but I enjoyed it as much as she did. I was getting lonely in that stupid motel room every night. To alleviate some of that loneliness, I tried Plato's Place a couple nights after my usual dinner at Denny's. I don't really know why. I never considered myself the kind to pick women up in a bar. I was sure hoping one would pick me up though. Of course it never happened. Most of the time I'd sit on my favorite stool, light beer in hand, and watch other couples come in and enjoy each other's company. The time wasn't completed wasted though. I discovered something. I learned that no matter how lonely you are when you're alone, being lonely in a crowd of people is worse. That Saturday, I could tell the kids were getting weary of the situation. I knew they wanted me back living in the house. After dropping them off, I returned to my motel room to think. Once again, I tried composing my thoughts into some kind of rationale, but instead I just starting to feel sorry for myself. Why was I doing this, I wondered. At home, I had a loving wife and 4 wonderful kids. Okay, so my loving wife cheated on me. So she's not the person I thought she was. That person would never even think of cheating on me. So I'm still hurting from the betrayal of our wedding vows. I'm sure the pain will go away after a while. Of course, then there's the issue of trust. How would I ever be able to trust her again? I wondered if I'd ever be able to make love to her again the way I used to, or would images of her and Tony flash through my mind? I wondered if I could ever just think of her as my wife again without attaching the caveat of adulteress. Damn it, I thought. It's like I'm being pulled apart. One side of me wants to go home so bad I can taste it, but the other side of me keeps reminding me why it's not so easy to do. Before I can even think of reconciling with my wife, I first have to reconcile with myself. As I sat in the dark watching the neon sign flashing, vacancy, outside my window, I felt more tears running down my cheeks. One of these days, I told yours truly, I'm going to run out of those. A couple days later, and told me my wife was on the phone. I missed her. I think it showed in my greeting. Hi, Lisa. I answered with an upbeat tone in my voice. How are you? Hi, Joe. I'm doing about as well as I can without my husband at my side, she said. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have said that. I know this is all my fault. I just miss you so much, Joe. I know, Lisa. I miss you too. That doesn't mean I'm not still hurting though, because I am. I don't know that I'll ever get over the hurt, Lisa. I just don't know. Anyway, was there anything specific, or is this just a social call? Well, there are a couple things, she said. First, I want to apologize for my outburst the other night when you told me about Tony and those other women. It just came as such a shock. After you called, I thought about it, then I got scared. If he was having sex with that many women, maybe I should get tested. So I made an appointment with the doctor. He just called. I'm free and clear. Nothing, no STDs. I wanted to tell you as soon as I heard. I didn't know if you had gotten tested or not, but I wanted to let you know in case you were worried. I sat there shocked. With everything going on, I never even thought of catching some sexually transmitted disease. I was glad Lisa had the presence of mind to consider something like that. That was good thinking, I told her. To tell you the truth, I never gave it a thought. I'm glad you told me, thanks. I probably would have woken in a panic some night. Well, you would have thought about sooner or later. At least this is one thing you don't have to be concerned about. The other thing I want to tell you is that your parents invited us to dinner next Saturday. Do you think we can go, all of us? They haven't seen the kids in several weeks and, well, I thought maybe we could be a family again, even if it was only for a day. I thought about it for a few seconds. It would be nice. I haven't seen the folks in a couple of months, but, I don't think that would be a good idea, Lisa. Right now, we're not a happy family, and I'm not going to lie to my folks by pretending to be. Okay, Lisa said, her tone showing obvious disappointment. What should I tell them? We've never turned them down before. What excuse can I give your mother? She asked. I don't know, I said a little edgy. Tell her you didn't realize I had made plans already. Okay, Joe, she said sadly. I'll call her today and let her know. I'm sorry, Lisa. I'd like to go see them too. I just don't think it's a good idea right now. What if one of the kids said something about me living away from home? Then we'd have to tell them everything. I'm just not ready to do that yet, I said. I know, Joe, you're right. I give your mom a call a little later. We talked for just a couple more minutes then hung up, but not before she told me again how much she loved me. I wished she would stop saying that, at least for a while. It just didn't make sense to me. I could never do what she did, never. Later, as I watched the digital clock on my desk tick the minutes off, I hated to see the workday end. At least at work there was enough to keep my mind occupied on other things besides my personal problems. But as soon as I left the office, they pretty much dominated my thoughts for the rest of the evening. The call from Lisa and having to turn down an invitation to my folks' house would bring all my troubles to the forefront again, and I knew I would be thinking of nothing else until I fell asleep. If I got to sleep, I decided to kick back 1 or 2 at Plato's place on the way home. Home? Damn, I thought. Is that how I perceive that motel room now, as my home? When I walked into Plato's, I almost turned right around and walked back out again. Chris was sitting at the bar, and I wasn't sure I was in the mood to talk to him. I was there to forget my troubles. Talking to him would do the opposite. Oh well, who was I kidding? 1 or 2 drinks wasn't going to make me forget anyway. I walked over and took a seat next to him. Hi, Chris. How are things going? I asked. He looked over my way with a stern expression on his face. Hi, Joe. How are things going? Huh, I wish I knew, he replied with a bitter tone to his voice. I guess I'm going to try and forgive the bitch. She keeps telling how sorry she is and that it'll never happen again. Chris poured what was left of his drink down his throat and ordered another. Joe, I hope you never have to go through anything like this. I mean that. I've always considered myself a pretty well put together kind of guy. I'm fairly intelligent, a hard worker, loving, honest, and I hope trustworthy. But nothing has ever affected me like this has. He took a sip of his fresh drink and stared into the glass. I'll tell you this, whoever beat the snot out of Harper did him a favor, because if it had been me, I'd have killed the son of a bitch. Sometimes that's the way I feel about Pam too. I just want to put my hands around her throat and squeeze, Then other times I want to wrap my arms around her and never let her go. He turned and looked at me. That makes no sense at all, does it, Joe? Actually, Chris, it does. I told him, knowing exactly how he felt. As I sat there and listened to Chris talk about forgiving his wife, I thought he actually made a pretty good case for staying together. He talked about his daughter, Audrey, and how he thought a divorce would affect her. He talked about them going to marriage counseling, and I thought that might be an option for Lisa and me as well. By the time we both walked out of there, I felt better than I had since I listened to that phone call. Chris made a lot of sense to me, and I was about 80% sure I was going to go back home and give my marriage another chance. The next morning, I heard my secretary's voice across the intercom telling me my mother was on the phone. Great, I thought. She's going to ask me what I'm doing Saturday that's more important than going over there for dinner. Well, I told myself, maybe it's time to patch things up anyway. Hello, Mom, I greeted. How are you and Dad? We're fine, honey, she answered. I was disappointed to find out you won't be coming for dinner on Saturday. Well, I was just going to tell her we would be able to make it after all when she interrupted me. What's going on, Joe? Are you cheating on Lisa? I was so shocked at the question I could feel my own mouth drop open. Cheating on Lisa? What the hell gave you that idea? I was flabbergasted. When she told me you guys couldn't make it for dinner, I pushed her to find out why. I could hear her crying. I know you two are having troubles, she said. That's obvious. And I got the impression you moved out of the house so you could be with someone else. Well, you're wrong, Mom. I'm not cheating on Lisa, I said emphatically. I wondered what Lisa said. I knew my mother had a tendency of jumping to conclusions sometimes, and I wanted to believe that's what happened and that Lisa didn't lie to her. It is true that we're having problems, Mom, but it has nothing to do with me cheating on her, believe me. We continued to talk, and by the time we hung up, I was pretty sure I had convinced my mother I wasn't cheating on my wife. I wanted to give myself a few minutes to calm down before calling Lisa. I went down to the cantina and got a cup of coffee out of the machine and sat there sipping it for a while. When I got back to my office and said I had a client on the phone, so talking to him gave me even more time to settle down. By the time I finished the business call, it was lunchtime. It was almost 1:30 in the afternoon by the time I dialed my home number. Hello, I heard my wife's voice. Hi, I said, still with a little anger in my voice. How are you? You mean aside from missing my husband? She asked. Yeah, I mean aside from that, I replied. Well, physically I'm fine. Emotionally I'm a wreck, she said. I know I screwed up, Joe, big time. I know I've hurt you terribly, and if you just give me a second chance, I will work for the rest of my life trying to make it up to you. I sighed to myself. I was getting tired of hearing the same old song. I'd heard it so many times it was losing its meaning. Just then I remembered why I called. Lisa, what did you say to my mom the other day? What do you mean? I told her what you said, that you had made other plans. Why? Well, she called earlier today and accused me of cheating on you. What? Oh, honey, I never said anything like that, honest. I have no idea how she got that idea, she said in a panicky voice. She knew we were having problems, that's for sure. She said you gave her the impression I moved out of the house so I could be with someone else. Oh, Joe, I don't know what I could have said that would make her think that. She kept asking questions when I told her we couldn't make it over Saturday, but I never said anything about you and another woman, she said convincingly. We talked a little more, but she pretty well persuaded me that she was innocent of telling my mother I was running around with another woman. The following Saturday, I picked the kids up as usual. I was thinking of telling them I would be coming home the next day, but for some reason I was holding off. I was almost positive by that time I was going to give our marriage a second chance. I knew Lisa would agree to counseling, but there was still a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. For the most part, the kids and I had a wonderful time. We went to the car museum in a little town close to the Wisconsin border, then to Lake Geneva for the boat tour. I did notice Tessa was awful quiet. I wondered if she was having boyfriend troubles. Maybe relationship problems run in our family, I thought to myself. It wasn't until the end of the day when I found out why she was so bummed out and that my wife had made the second biggest mistake of her life. As I dropped them all off, Tessa stayed in the car. Dad, she asked as her voice was starting to break up a little. Are you cheating on Mom? Did you move out so you could be with another woman? If I thought I was flabbergasted at my mom's accusations, it was nothing compared to hearing it from my own daughter. No, honey, absolutely not. Where did you get that idea? I saw a tear running down her cheek as she spoke. I heard Mom talking to Grandma the other day. Mom didn't know I was listening. She told Grandma you moved out and she suspected you had a girlfriend. My heart sank. This was it, the end. After telling Lisa several times there would be no more lies, she just couldn't seem to help herself. How could she ever regain my trust if she continued to lie? The answer was simple. She couldn't. For the past couple of months, I had been talking myself into going home, and just when I had done it, she killed it. I swore to my daughter there was no one else and I had never cheated on her mother. I asked her to make sure everyone would be home Sunday afternoon. I hated to think about it, but I knew what I had to do. That night the hurt and pain I had been experiencing since this thing started turned to pure sadness. I didn't think I had any tears left, but how wrong I was. I cried almost all night. It was the end of the life I had known for the last 20 years, a life I cherished. Regrettably, I took the time I needed to prepare for the next day. I called ahead to make sure everyone was there. When I arrived, I asked that everyone take a seat in the living room and set the tape recorder on the coffee table. I looked at Lisa sitting across from me. She had a puzzled look on her face. She never did ask how I found out about her and Tony, and had not the slightest inkling of what was about to happen. With everyone sitting within hearing distance, I hit the play button. You know damn well Joe doesn't screw you like I do. Hell, I could write a book about some of the hot sessions you and I have had. I would too, except no one would believe it. Yeah, I have to admit you and I are great in the sack together. We always have been. What is that? Stop. Lisa screamed. Oh my God, Joe, turn that off. Please turn it off. She was frantic. Where did you get that? Oh my God. I hit the stop button. That was all I had intended to play anyway. I just wanted to make sure Lisa couldn't turn the kids against me with more lies. The children just sat in silence for a few seconds. Tessa was the first to speak. You told Grandma Dad was cheating on you. You lied. It was you. You're the cheater, not Dad. Mom, how could you do this? She said, looking at her mother. Lisa had tears rolling down her face as she looked down at the floor. She knew it was the end of our marriage just like I did. That's when Karen shook things up more. You 304. How could you do this? You broke up our family. I hate you. I'll never forgive you. Never. I'm ashamed you're even my mother. You're nothing but a lying, cheating 304, she shouted, running upstairs to her room. Lisa started crying harder. Both the youngest, Mark and Gwen, just sat. You could see the pain leaking from their eyes as they stared at their mother. How could you? Lisa said, her voice muffled from her hands covering her face. How could you be so cruel to the children? She asked between sobs. Kids, I'm sorry you had to hear that, I uttered, but as I said before, there will be no more lies in this family. Your mother and I need to be alone. I looked at Tessa, who was still sitting there with tears streaming down her face. Honey, would you take your brother and sister upstairs for me, please? And please try not to worry too much, honey. We're still a family and we both still love you kids as much as ever. We'll find some way to work this all out, I promise, honey. Tessa wiped the tears from her eyes and nodded her head, acknowledging what I said, but I knew she didn't believe it. She took Mark and Gwen by the hand and headed for the stairs. I waited until they got to the second landing. What did you think, Lisa? Did you really think I would fall on my sword and let you accuse me of infidelity? Did you think I would take the blame for all of this? How can I be so cruel? Are you kidding me? I asked. They're only children, she said with her hands still covering her face. Where did you get that tape? After that kid called for Karen at 2 in the morning, I bugged our phone so I could record his voice and play it to see if Karen knew who he was. Imagine how I felt when I was looking for his call and stumbled on your conversation with your lover. Oh my God, Joe, you must have been devastated. I'm so sorry. You were never supposed to find out. Let me ask you, when you were out screwing around, screwing Tony in motel rooms, did you really think you were only cheating on me? Because you weren't, you know. You were cheating on our kids too. Our kids, your parents, my parents, and our friends. You've let them all down. I had to pull myself together as I continued. Never did our children think you would gamble with their lives or their happiness, but you did. Never did they think you would deliberately do something that could hurt them so deeply, jeopardize their future, but you did. How do you think your parents are going to feel when they find out the daughter they raised to be a moral person with integrity, lied and cheated for years just to satisfy her own selfish thrills? What do you think my parents are going to say after knowing how you schemed behind their son's back, just so you could go screw an old boyfriend. I wiped a tear from my own eye. You want to know the real kicker here? I was planning on coming home today. Lisa's raised her head and looked into my eyes. Yeah, I was all set to give us a second chance. Then my mom called saying you indicated that I was cheating on you. When I asked you about it, you lied to me. After all this, all the dishonesty, how many times did I say there would be no more lies and you lied to me? I know you lied because yesterday Tessa asked me the same question. She said she overheard you talking to Grandma, and you said you thought I had a girlfriend. That's when I knew I'd never be able to trust you. Lisa sat there just shaking her head. I thought if I came back, we could go to counseling. Maybe that would help me deal with the pain. I knew the trust would be hard to get around, but I thought you had learned your lesson. Then, when I realized you lied to me over the phone, I knew you hadn't. You were still lying. You were still untrustworthy. I had to stop for a minute. I was calling an end to my marriage. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. Lisa, I don't want to spend the rest of my life sitting in my office wondering what you're doing, or getting suspicious when you tell me you're going shopping with a friend. I can't do it. As much as I want my happy home back, it wouldn't work. Oh, Joe. Oh my God, I wish I could turn the clock back. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was so afraid of you finding out someday, so afraid of hurting you. That's why I didn't meet Tony that last time. But you were going to go, weren't you? If not, you wouldn't have hid that black teddy from me, I stated. Yes, I admit, at first I was going to go, but I changed my mind. I didn't call Tony and tell him I wasn't coming because I didn't want to take the chance of him telling me back into it again. I sighed. It didn't make any difference, it was over. Tomorrow I'll file for divorce. I want you to know I still love you. I just can't keep you as my wife any longer, but I'll probably always love you. She didn't say anything. She just kept crying. I'll go up and talk to the kids. See if I can get them to give you some slack and let them know what's going on, I said, raising up from the couch. As I got to the top of the stairs, all I heard was crying. Mark, being the only boy, had a room of his own. So did Tessa since she was the oldest. Gwen and Karen shared the fourth bedroom. The crying I heard was coming from them all. I poked my head in Mark's room and asked if he'd go to Tessa's. Then I asked Karen and Gwen as well. When I went into Tessa's room, they were all waiting for me. I sat on the bed and everyone surrounded me. Gwen sat on my lap and hung her arms around my neck. Kids, I can't tell you how sorry I am that your mother and I are putting you through this. Your mother didn't do what she did to hurt us, none of us. She didn't think we'd ever find out. Unfortunately, we did. And now everyone is going to be hurt. Gwen laid her head against my chest and sobbed. This doesn't mean we're not still a family, I said. We are, and we all need to support each other. That includes your mother. Dad, if you think I'm ever going to talk to her again, you're wrong, burst Karen. I hate her, she shouted. I'll never forgive her. Dad, never. Karen, look, I know you're angry right now, but don't be too hard on your mother. She's only human and humans make mistakes, honey. Dad, going behind your back to be with another man is not a mistake. She did it knowing exactly what she was doing. She betrayed you and she betrayed us. I will never forgive her. I found it hard to knock her logic. She was absolutely right. What was I going to say? I hoped that in time Karen would find at least a little forgiveness for her mother, not for Lisa's sake, but for Karen's. Hate takes something out of a person. I didn't want to see that happen to my daughter. I was upstairs for more than an hour talking, but I'm not sure it did any good. All the kids, even Gwen, were hurt, disappointed, and angry with their mom. Again, I wasn't very proud of myself for what I was thinking, but I couldn't help it. Secretly, I thought, good. Lisa got herself into this mess. Now let her deal with the consequences. By the time I got back downstairs, Lisa had poured herself a cup of coffee and was sitting at the kitchen table just staring into space. I walked over, poured myself a cup, and sat down at the opposite end of the table. What happens next? She asked, almost as if she was in a trance. Tomorrow I'll file for divorce, I said sadly. From what I know about Illinois, I expect you'll get the house and custody of the kids. I'll have to pay child support and maybe some maintenance, but I doubt if you'll be able to live on it. You'll probably have to go out and get a job. Lisa slowly nodded her head. I was waitressing when I met you. I'll probably go back to it, she said softly. It's the only thing I know. We sat there in silence for a few more minutes. I have to ask, Lisa. She finally looked up at me. Why? Was I not man enough for you? Why would you do this? I thought we were so happy together. She looked directly into my eyes with the most pained expression I ever saw, then burst into tears again. Oh God, she sobbed. God, why? I wish I could tell you, Joe. The truth is, I don't know. It had nothing to do with you not being man enough, that I can assure you. It was just different, I guess, I don't know. She raised her head again and dried her eyes with a tissue. Even when we were kids, Tony seemed to have a reputation with girls. He's not big or anything like that. He just seemed to be so much more experienced than anyone else's age. Back then, he once told me his older brother's girlfriend taught him everything. I don't know if that's true or not, but somebody taught him. Excuse me, she said, blowing her nose and taking a sip of coffee. When I was 16, I decided it was time to have a boyfriend. Almost all the girls had one by that time, and I set my sights on Tony. I knew I'd be the envy of a dozen girls. I also knew Tony would never go with a girl who didn't put out, so I let him have me. He was my first. She stopped a minute and just gazed down at her coffee. Anyway, she continued, Tony and I were a couple until he graduated and went to college. I wasn't kidding myself. I knew he would be screwing around on me. After I graduated a year later, I got a job as a waitress. After that, we became friends with benefits. When he came home for the summer, we dated exclusively, but when he went back to college, we both dated other people. It was like that until his senior year when he met Megan. He really seemed to change. I honestly didn't think he would ever cheat on her. I still don't understand, I barked. So he was your first? That still doesn't explain why. What? You decided to jump back in the sack with him for old time's sake? I don't get it. She sighed. I'm not sure how to say it, Joe. You said no more lies and I've learned my lesson. I swear I'll never tell another lie again as long as I live. Never mind, I said. I get it. He's better in bed than me. You miss the great sex? I heard what you said on the tape. I don't need my nose rubbed in it. That's exactly what I mean, Joe. No, he's not better in bed than you are, but he is different. It's a different experience. Do you know when I fell in love with you? It was during the first time we made love. Yeah, the very first time we had sex you made love to me. It was the first time anyone had ever made me feel so special. I'd had sex, of course, but no one had ever made love to me the way you did. I knew from that moment I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. Lisa, you're beating around the bush. You still haven't it. Because of his stamina, she exclaimed, Tony can get harder and keep it up longer than any man I've ever seen. That's why. He can go for hours. He literally wears a woman out. I don't know, it's almost like working out at the gym. He leaves you completely exhausted. She looked at me for a response, but I just sat there. I didn't know how to react. As time went by and I saw him now, and then I'd sometimes wonder if he could still keep it up like that, but I never intended to find out. Then, about 5 years ago, I ran into him in a restaurant. We had a couple drinks with lunch and talked, mostly about mundane things. Then Tony asked if I remembered some of the love-making session we had. I asked him if he could still stay hard as long as he used to, and he asked if I'd like to find out for myself. Joe, it was just supposed to be a one-time thing. He convinced me no one would ever find out. It was months later before we did it again. She wiped her eyes again and got up to take the last cup of coffee. It went on like that until that Saturday, she said with her back to me while draining the pot. She turned and walked back to the table. Tony had me thoroughly convinced we'd never get caught, so we'd get together 3 or 4 times a year. I honestly don't know why I kept going back. It seems so ridiculous to me now. I'd have 3 or 4 hours of fun, then spend the next 3 or 4 days feeling guilty about it. I sometimes wondered why you never notice it, but then I realized it was because you trusted me so much. That just made me feel even worse. Lisa blew on the coffee a second before taking a sip. Do you remember that morning you went to work without kissing me? She asked. Yeah, I remember, I replied stoically. That was the first real indication something was wrong. To be honest, I really didn't think you knew anything about Tony. I mean, how could you? There was definitely something wrong though, and it really made me look at the chance I was taking. I decided right then there would be no more screwing around. Not with Tony or anybody else. Unfortunately, it was too late, she said as her voice started to tremble. I know you're probably tired of hearing it, Joe, but I am sorry. I've hurt you and the kids and I'll never forgive myself. I'm afraid that makes 2 of us, I said, getting up from the table. I went back upstairs to say goodbye to the kids and found them all still huddled in Tessa's room. Guys, have I ever let you down? I asked them. I got either a verbal no or a shaking head, but they all agreed I had never let them down. And I won't now either. I'm still your dad and I will always be here when you need me. I'm going to get an apartment close by, so all you have to do is whistle and I'll be here in no time. Even though I won't be living here anymore, we are still a family. Hear me? That will never change. Before I left, we virtually showered each other with hugs and kisses. If I live to be 100, I'll never forget the extent of sadness I felt in my heart as I walked down the steps of my front porch that day, leaving my life behind me. Lisa agreed to everything I asked for in the divorce. The big thing was visitation rights. She said no matter what the court ordered, I could see the kids anytime I wanted for as long as I wanted. Within 3 months, Lisa found a job waitressing. Wouldn't you know it would be at the Denny's I frequented. What's that bogey line? Of all the Denny's of all the towns of all world, she has to waitress in mine. Okay, something like that. Anyway, she told the judge she was making over $300 a week in tips and said she didn't need maintenance, just the child support. The judge still gave her a year's worth, but made it substantially less than he had previously intended. It didn't take me long to see how hard life would be for Lisa from now on. Her infidelity cost her dearly. The worst was losing the respect of our kids. No matter how I pleaded with them, they treated her like dirt. As I might have guessed, although none of the kids behaved very nicely toward her, Karen was the cruelest. She continued to call Lisa a 304. Tessa told me she heard Karen introduce Lisa to a friend from school as, "That 304 over there is my mom." I heard she even spit in Lisa's face once. Lisa just ran into her bedroom crying. I know she brought it on herself, but I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Lisa had no social life. The kids told me she never went anywhere. She lost most of her friends and didn't even talk on the phone much. There were absolutely no men in her life. In fact, she never dated, not once since the divorce. My parents wouldn't talk to her anymore. Even the relationship with her own parents was strained. On top of that, she spent very long, hard hours on her feet, working, trying to provide for her children in spite of the open hostility they showed toward her. I haven't talked to her, but I have a feeling she looks at her life now as penance. Even after paying child support, I lived fairly comfortably. I did some dating from time to time, but never found anyone I considered special. A year after signing the lease on my first apartment, I moved to a bigger one, a 2-bedroom. As soon as Tessa graduated high school, she asked if she could come and stay with me until college started. When she moved out of the house, she had to twist the knife a little more by telling Lisa that as far as she was concerned, she was breaking all ties to her mother and she didn't care if she never saw her again. 2 years later, Karen would do the same thing. As a bachelor, I work a lot. It cuts down on boredom. Have one friend with benefits I see occasionally, but mostly I still live for my kids. Tessa will be entering her sophomore year of college in another month. Karen landed a great job with an advertising firm right out of high school and is going out with a young man who also works there. I've met him and like him a lot. Mark and Gwen still live with their mother, of course. They tell me Lisa still is not dating. Neither of them are as hard on her as Karen and Tessa were, although from what they tell me, Lisa never smiles anymore. I saw Chris Grant a week ago. He and his wife tried to make a go of things, but all they did was fight and wound up divorcing anyway. I never did hear what happened to Megan. I assume she went back to Michigan like she said she would. I never talked to her again after that night at the Queen's Crown. One of the highlights of my current life came just the other day when I went to visit an old friend. Do you know what the statute of limitations are on assault and battery in the state of Illinois? I asked Tony. After all this time, he was still in a nursing home. Megan was right. He was never capable of going back to work and was now living on disability. Still unable to walk, he sat in his wheelchair and stated he didn't know the answer to my question. 3 years, I said with a smile. Do you know how long it's been since your beating? Again, he wasn't sure. It's been 3 years and 1 day, I told him. I'll never forget his face when I knelt down to his level, looked him straight in the eyes and said, "And do you know why you're here? Because that's what I do to guys who think they can get away with screwing my wife." I gave him the biggest smile I could get on my face and walked out as he broke down in tears. I guess if you look at our lifestyles, you'd say I came out of this thing a lot better than Lisa, but I'll tell you right now, there were no winners, only losers. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.